But in another area of research, scientists are exploring new antiviral drugs to reduce the spread of COVID and get people back on their feet sooner. Eric Thomas, KCBS.
And a museum is popping up inside the former Cliff House restaurant. It focuses on the history of the once thriving pocket of the city. KCBS's David Welch visited the space.
The space that was the historic Cliff House served as a regular stop for those exploring the city. That was all lost when the restaurant closed in 2020. But now, thanks to Nicole Meldahl and her team behind the Western Neighborhoods Project, it's open again as a temporary museum.
We want this space to evoke memories, but we also want you to think about what the history of this entire area is.
A section of the museum looks at the history of the restaurant, but much of the museum is dedicated to the world that unfolded outside these windows. There's paintings of the old neighborhood, photos of Sutro baths, and of course, playland at the beach. Before its decline through the 1960s, Playland was San Francisco's version of Coney Island. Through a collection of photos, soundscapes, and original hand-painted signs, the demolished amusement park comes to life.
You could get corn dogs, you could ride a wooden roller coaster, you could be terrified by laughing sounds.
The free exhibit is open on weekends through August 21st. At Ocean Beach, David Welch, KCBS.
KCBS News Time 12:25. Take a look at your money.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. A winning week on Wall Street lies within as we begin the Friday session. Stocks were mixed yesterday as traders awaited this morning's release of the government's July jobs report. Analysts are forecasting a gain of 250,000 jobs and a steady unemployment rate of 3.6%. The Nasdaq closed modestly higher yesterday. The Dow and S&P were down slightly. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is putting Goldman Sachs credit card business under the microscope. The agency is looking into a range of issues, from its handling of billing errors to how it reports information to credit bureaus. Goldman says it's cooperating. Many investors will be listening closely as Warren Buffett's Berkshire reports its quarterly results tomorrow. Slumping markets in the first half of the year are expected to have taken a chunk out of the company's stock portfolio. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, class. A quick head count. Tiffany, here. Zach.
Yup.
Steven. Is he absent again?
For many kids, just getting to school feels like a challenge. Staying through graduation is even harder. That's where Communities in Schools comes in. A powerful community of caring adults, working with vulnerable kids in schools every day, helping them overcome the barriers that stand in the way of learning. Hunger, homelessness, health problems, and even emotional trauma. Communities in Schools. We're inside schools partnering with teachers and counselors, empowering at-risk kids by providing supportive relationships, doing whatever it takes to help them thrive in school and have brighter futures. Communities in Schools. We're in schools to help kids stay in school. See how we help all kids succeed at communitiesinschools.org.
KCBS News Time 12:28. We're going to look at the roadways with Frank.
Oh, we're nothing much in the way of trouble on those roadways. In fact, we're not looking at anything in the way of accidents or stalls. We don't even have any weather advisories in effect, which we oftentimes do at this time of the morning. No high wind advisories or dense fog advisories. We do have fog, though, on the coast, and we do have road work going on, and we'll start in terms of road work with under-the-limit traffic between Dixon and Rio Vista. That's because we have one-way traffic control, and in fact, for road work on both directions of Highway 113 from Highway 12 to Flannery Road. Obviously, first one direction and then the other direction of 113. Stop for that one-way traffic control. We have road work between Pleasanton and the Sonoma grade, southbound 680 between Burdell Avenue and Sonoma Boulevard. The two right lanes are closed until 4 this morning, and over the Altamont Pass, both directions of Highway 580 and Grant Line Road, we have the 3 left lanes in each direction closed. Westbound, they're going to be closed until 3. Eastbound, they're not going to reopen until 9 this morning. Your next update at 12:38. Traffic leader at KC.
turning sunny but cooler today with heavy fog at the coast. Highs from the 60s at the ocean, 70s around the bay to the mid-80s inland. Traffic and weather together on the 8th on World News 106.9 and AM 740 KCBS. There's magic in the world. Get back to work.
Be quiet
And not ask questions.
Those people need 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
When you've seen the magic,
And felt the magic.
you can no longer deny the magic.
We make junk disappear.
All you have to do is point.
And now we pause for a word from Charlotte, the junk fairy. A friend is a person who always brings little magic with them. Be a friend. Call 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Or visit 1-800-GOTJUNK.com.
News that matters to you. Around the bay, around the world, around the clock. All news 106.9 and AM 740 KCBS. It's Friday, August the 5th, 2022. Coming up on KCBS with violent crime on the rise during the last 2 years of uncertainty. The DOJ is working on some new strategies. I'm Elisa Clancy, CBS News Time 1231.
CBS News Brief. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is in Japan, but she's still talking about
Our
Taiwan.
friendship with Taiwan is a strong one. It is bipartisan in the House and the Senate. Overwhelming support for peace and the status quo in Taiwan.
WNBA star Brittany Griner sentenced to 9 years in a Russian prison on drug charges. Her high school basketball coach, Debbie
Want to
Jackson.
pull your hair out because you want news. But she's always in my prayers every night.
A jury in Texas has ordered InfoWars host Alex Jones to pay more than $4 million to 2 parents of a victim of the Sandy Hook massacre, but a punitive award has yet to be decided. Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson.
Alex Jones is a supremely unlikable figure, and this could be a jury that does in fact decide the amount of punitive damages is reasonable and is appropriate.
CBS News Brief. I'm Christopher Cruz.
KCBS News Time 1232. With violent crime on the rise in the United States, CBS News correspondent Jeff Pegues tells the story of 2 men working to help the victims of violent crime, shaped by their personal experience with tragic loss.
Losing a loved one to murder is the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody.
Sergeant Ben Brown solved homicides in Prince George's County, Maryland.
Never thought it would touch me in my personal life.
2020, the senseless violence he usually fights in the streets hit home for him and his wife Donna. Their 17-year-old son Bradley was gunned down steps from their house. Police say Bradley was selling THC vape cartridges when his killers tried to rob him, and he died in the family's driveway.
I go out there almost every day, and I have the thoughts of him laying there.
With rising crime and homicides in cities and towns across America, more victims and families are faced with grief that the legal system is often unable to heal. 50% of all homicides across the country went unsolved in 2020, and even for the cases that are cracked, the road to justice can still be painfully long. One of the men involved in Bradley's death has been sentenced to life in prison, but another suspect goes on trial later this year, more than 2 years after the crime. Do you think at times victims are forgotten in this talk about rise in crime across the country?
Unfortunately, all too frequently.
Assistant Attorney General Kenneth Police leads the Justice Department's Criminal Division. This year, his office has brought in its first victim rights coordinator.
The reality is that the criminal justice system often doesn't provide enough. I can't bring back a loved one to a family, no matter what sentence the criminal justice system imposes.
Police grew up in New Orleans' Lower Ninth Ward. He is a prosecutor who sees violent crime and victims.
I lost my half-brother to the streets of New Orleans very violently as well.
Growing up, his family kept him on track. He credits a mother who was dedicated to his success, and a father who was a 37-year veteran of New Orleans Police Department. But police says his half-brother's murder is why he's working at the Justice Department.
I think his death in a lot of ways shapes me and led me to want to become a prosecutor.
Police says victims are at the center of the work that his office is doing.
Criminal Division is updating its victim policies and procedures, including possible legislative changes to victims' rights statutes.
These are the resources that we need. We could absolutely use more to ensure that we are bringing those victims into our work as early as possible, making sure that our decision-making is being informed by their interests.
He said mistrust of police by minority communities is one of the hurdles he's trying to tackle.
I've seen the worst of law enforcement. I've seen what it means for victims not to come forward. I've seen what it means for witnesses not willing to come into a courtroom to support our cases.
Which cannot lead to delayed prosecution, as was the case for police families.
It took about 10 years for your family to get justice.
Sergeant Ben Brown says the most important thing for all victims is to not give up the hope for justice.
There are things you can do to promote the case and try and get justice.
You're telling people to keep the pressure on people like you who investigate these cases.
Absolutely. You have to. You don't want them to ever forget.
That's Jeff Begay's reporting. The city of Berkeley canceled a planned special meeting to decide whether to suspend the city's ban on the use of tear gas, smoke, and pepper spray by law enforcement. If approved, this suspension would have lasted for the duration of the City Council's summer recess. It comes as construction is set to begin on a planned student housing development at People's Park, where work was halted yesterday, a day before yesterday, after protesters ripped down security fencing and damaged other construction equipment. 7 people were arrested in that incident. And a proposed $31.1 million road and bridge budget would prioritize improving and maintaining the 422 miles of roads in Marin County over the next 2 years. The budget works to restore walls, bridges, and drainage systems, but $21.7 million is specifically allocated to improving and stabilizing roads. Presented to the County Board of Supervisors in June, the budget would use money from the county's general fund, regional tax revenues, and the California Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. As roadways deteriorate, repairs become exponentially more expensive, said the Public Works Department. A full-blown budget is needed instead of merely patching things up, as they've been doing. Continuously patching up the county's worst roadways is a technique that only worsens road conditions overall and is more costly over time. The road program will select its projects based on long-term cost of maintenance, its usage, and its candidacy for grant funding, among a list of other factors. KCBS News Time, 12:38. Speaking of roads, let's head out there and see what Frank's looking at.
Well, we are not looking at much. In fact, we're not looking at anything in the way of accidents or stalls. We are looking at road work in a number between Diablo Road and Livorno. Between Danville and Walnut Creek, we have the 2 left lanes coned off for road work there for the next several hours. At the Caldecott Tunnel, the left-hand bore in the westbound direction of 24 is shut down for road work until 4 this morning, but the right-hand bore will remain open. And over the Altamont Pass, we have road work in both directions of 580 at Grant Line Road. In the westbound direction, it's the 3 left lanes that will remain coned off until 3 this morning. In the eastbound direction, those lanes will stay shut down, the 3 left, until 9 this morning, even though that's the counter-commute direction. That could cause some slowing at the beginning of or during the morning commute. Your next update at 12:48 on the traffic leader KCBS.
Thank you, Frank. It's going to be breezy, increasing cloud fog this morning, locally dense. It looks like we've got lows into just about everybody in the 60s, free falling outside. It'll be sunny but cooler today with heavy fog at the coast. San Jose, you're looking at 82 degrees, 85 in Concord, 87 in Livermore. No 90s is the forecast for today. Morgan Hill, 85, 80 in Napa. And there's your 70s, 78 in Fremont, 76 740 KCBS. KCBS News Time at 12:40 as the News Watch continues. Tennessee police details on a man arrested Tuesday on suspicion of shooting 7 people with a pellet gun. He's been charged with 14 felony counts, including assault with a deadly weapon. KCBS's David Welch explains.
Investigators don't believe the shootings were connected, saying that the 38-year-old Campbell man, Nicholas Montoya, targeted his victims randomly. They also believe that evidence collected during a search of Montoya's home revealed that the shootings were carried out with precision and detail.
These air rifles had optics on them, so they were not toys.
That's Captain Jason Dwyer, investigator with the San Jose Police. He described how the suspect targeted his first 3 victims in June, all in different locations, and all within 45 minutes of each other. Dwyer believes that although the victims were random, the suspect had a particular type of target in mind.
So I have to believe that he could have shot anybody out there that he wanted to, but instead he shot 6 females. One of whom was a 9-year-old girl, and the one male that was with the female related that possibly he was shooting at her and he hit the male instead.
Montoya was out on bail when the crimes occurred. That charge was for possession of a Molotov cocktail. The suspect has no history of gun-related crimes. David Welch, KCBS.
And former San Francisco DA Jason Boudin will not run for the DA's office. He will not be running for that position again this fall. Tweeting out this morning, he is choosing to put his family first and adding he is proud of the progress he made in the DA's office in a short period of time, especially in the expansion of victim services and new programs to serve the AAPI community. Boudin said he would not rule out another run for the office. And the United States is a country that has historically welcomed immigrants. Now a new study looks at decades worth of political speeches to see how points of view may or may not have shifted when it comes to immigration. KCBS's Alice Wirtz shares this report.
Throughout history, it's easy to find examples of spoken and written criticism of immigrants in America. Ron Abramsky is Stanford Professor of Economics and Dean of Social Sciences. He's also co-author of Streets of Gold, America's Untold Story of Immigrant Success. His latest study reviewed census data and political speeches going years back.
And we analyzed the language used in Congress from 1880 to the present, more than 8 million speeches in all, approximately 200,000 of which about immigration.
It's not just in the U.S. that attitudes shift back and forth over time. Abramsky said it's generational, economic and socio-political trends that tend to loop. And it may be surprising to learn
the attitudes towards immigrants in congressional speeches today are actually more positive than at almost any time in U.S. history.
Alice Wirtz, KCBS.
And U.S. Immigration authorities are planning to issue photo ID cards to immigrants in deportation proceedings. Officials say the proposal by Immigration and Customs Enforcement is still being developed as a pilot program, but the idea is to slash paper use to help people stay up to date on required meetings and court hearings. The cards would be issued for use by the Department of Homeland Security and not as an official federal ID. Critics say they're concerned about the security of the cards and whether they could be used for other purposes. The Biden administration is seeking $10 million for the so-called ICE Secure Docket Card in a budget proposal for the budget. And one person has died, another is on a ventilator as